Good morning. I'm not quite sure. When Tony gets in, check with them. I'm trying to figure out how to get this set up now that Dustin's not here. I'm trying to.
It's like not here now.
He was here, and then Tony needed him to go over to the other office.
Gotcha.
So yeah. Trying to get everybody else that's joining to show. Do you know how to do that?
She's in the waiting room.
Mhm.
I think they'll all just pop up there if they're waiting to come in, and then you just sit in
Oh
the
yeah. I've been on Zoom meetings, but I've
Yeah.
never set up a Zoom meeting.
Neither
So,
have I. Yeah.
okay. All right, says Kirsten's in here.
I didn't even know there was one today until he said that. I was like, well, I better check out files.
Yeah. I sent a reminder yesterday afternoon, and then the link I sent just a few minutes ago. Oh, there's my alarm.
Meeting started.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hi, Michelle.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. All
How
right.
are you?
I'm good. A little nervous. It's like my first time setting up the whole Zoom meeting thing. And
Oh, you're
Dustin
doing great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Dustin was here and he had to go over to the other office. So Tony wanted me to let you know he's running about 5 minutes late, but he'll be here shortly. Good morning, Kirsten. I see you out there too. What are you drinking, Kirsten?
Good morning. I'm just not gonna have video. I got children in the background, but I'm here.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Kirsten, I don't think I've formally met you, but it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you through Zoom. Sorry we haven't actually met in person yet.
No, you're fine. Actually, my niece's name is Kirsten, so that name is always near and dear to my heart.
Oh, really? You don't hear it often.
No, I know.
People always confuse Kristen, Kirsten, Kirsten.
Yep. Sure do. Yep.
And it is Kirsten, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool.
I'm just gonna close off my video because I'm gonna let my dog out real quick.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm gonna step away and then I'll check back, and then like I said, Tony will be here within 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, ladies. Thanks. All right, guys, are we still good? Can you still hear me?
That's really cool. I almost like I like this, the detail behind the ring. I almost like that better.
What was that, Michelle?
Can you still hear me? Everything's still good?
Yep.
Okay, great. All
I
right,
don't blame her.
Tony's just getting in now. He'll be right in.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry to keep you waiting. I apologize.
You're just fine.
Couldn't get her done today. So I am going to start with, I think, just real quick, and I know most of you heard me talk about this before, but kind of go over the way I view the real estate transaction and how I sort of when I was pitching my services, how I pitched my services, so as to, there's two things here. Well, mostly you have to make the consumer understand what we do, I think. Because I think to make the assumption that they understand what we do is putting yourself at a disadvantage. And then secondly, I think it's really important to build value in what we do so that, one, it justifies whatever it is you want to pay, whatever you want to charge. And secondly, it gives you the option to discount price your cost for services, but it also gives you the opportunity to put value behind it and therefore take something away, right? Because too often than not, it's kind of funny if you said to somebody, or if I said to you, let's just use a hypothetical. If I said to you, hey, our 95% plan's $495 and we charge a $500 admin fee and there's discounts built in, and with that you get XYZ, full access to me, from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, whatever it might be, right? And you said, look, I really can't afford, I can afford it, but I don't really want to pay that. Okay, fine. I'll discount it. What don't you want me to do for you? Right? Then all of a sudden, it's not about cost, it's about value, right? And I think it's okay. Like, I never wanted to set myself out there as a discount broker, so to speak, but I wasn't afraid to discount my services, right? So that's sort of the precursor to this first part. So just real briefly, I'm going to kind of cover this because I know you've all heard it, but I think it's important. So 3 very distinct and different aspects to a real estate transaction. On all of them, you need to be experts in, and all of them have a value assimilated to them, right? So aspect 1 is either marketing and or selection, right? And obviously that's, are you working with a buyer or are you working with a seller? Marketing, seller, selection, buyer. And you could even, if you want to extrapolate that selection, you could say search and selection, if you really want to kind of drill it down. Then your second phase is contract and negotiation, right? Where you drill down on the details of the contract and you negotiate the final terms. And then the third phase is the administrative phase, from contract to close. Once you get that final initial and signature on the contract and you move into the details of the contract and administrating the contract. So that's where I break them up. And when I present, I usually present from back to front, right? Because I personally think, and I think you all have to decide this sort of on your own, but I personally think that the level of importance goes from back to front. I personally think that most deals are lost in the administrative phase, from contract to close. when you are working with multiple people, professionals, agencies that look, they want the deal to close, but in some cases, they have a vested interest in the deal not closing. For example, a home inspector, and there are unscrupulous home inspectors out there, make no bones about it, that will really, I think it's been less obvious now, but they will really nitpick a property with the hope of destroying the transaction to build value in their personal services and to get multiple inspections. Think about it. If you hire me to do your home inspection and I do a good job and tell you it's a great house, I get paid one time. If I smoke one or two properties and you use me 2 or 3 times, I made $1,000, right? So, I mean, look, my point is not to trash home inspectors. Trust me, there's good ones, there's bad ones, just like there's good and bad realtors, right? My point is to say that these are the stories you tell a seller or a buyer where your role is, to navigate important dates, to try to supervise and oversee people that are not your employees, okay, such as home inspector, appraiser, survey, 4-point, and title. Okay. And you're going to see me bring this back to square and 6 steps, 6 figures a little bit too. But so our job in that administrative phase is to clearly navigate those people, keep them on time, make sure that they're doing the right job for your client, not step on their toes, but to be able to use your experience and professionalism to analyze the information that they're providing. And, to me, one of the key ingredients in all 3 of these phases is to try and minimize emotion. The only time there should be emotion in the transaction is in that selection phase. Somebody should get excited about what they're buying. Once you get past that, this is non-emotional. It's really strategic. It's really business. Yes, you want to maintain that level of excitement, but not to the point where it impacts the business aspect of the transaction, right? And I think in that administrative phase, our value is 1. A good realtor's value is 1. Now I personally think that you should assemble a team of people that are your go-to people, obviously on the buyers, and there's some overlap here, right? On the buyer side, I really believe you want to go to inspector, you want to go to mortgage guy. I mean, those 2 things, go to insurance guy. I mean, I think those are critical, why I am a strong proponent to Go Mortgage and Alliance Title and Pillar to Post is simply because I have complete control over them. So if you as an agent have a problem, I can intervene, right? Look, they're profit centers, but they're earned profits. I mean, that's the way it looks. But regardless of whether you're using us, right, or you're assembling your own team, I think it's really incredibly important to assemble a team that you trust. And by the way, one of the key ingredients to the selection of that team, right, is that their primary goal, and it's A and B, their primary goal is 1, to get your deal to closing on time, and 2, make you look good because you're their customer, just as much as the client is with whatever services they're hiring and contracting out. So if the people you assemble do not have a vested interest in getting your deal to closing on time and making you look good, making you look like the star of the show, you're dealing with the wrong people. Doesn't mean they're bad people. Doesn't mean they're bad at what they do. But that's how I made the selection of the people that I worked with. And that's the philosophy that we take forward in everything we do organizationally. But you have to navigate that administrative phase. And oh, by the way, the fact that there's 3 completely different aspects to a real estate transaction underlines how hard our job is, your job is, and how important your role is if it's actually if you've actioned it properly. Because you got to think about it. You should think about your roles, right? You're the CEO of your company. In most cases, this is true. Some people diversify a little bit, but you're the CEO of your company. You're your company's salesperson, right? You're your company's administrative assistant, and you're your company's operations manager. I don't know. I have a hard time finding one person to fill those roles independently. And now with the industry the way it is, you are your tech support and tech guru. There's great value. My point in pointing that out is not to scare the living daylights out of you, but my point is to underline that I think it's critically important that you establish value in what you do, not only for your client, for yourself, and then understand the areas that you have to master as you go along this journey of your real estate career. But that third phase, administrative phase, if you look at it, I can look over 21 years of this business. That administrative phase is probably where most deals fall apart, right? Because you got to navigate the 2 biggest things you're navigating is your home inspector and your appraisers. And oh, by the way, appraisals are going to get really interesting here over the next couple of years with the appreciation of the marketplace. I mean, we get calls from them all the time. Like Michelle is the broker owner, gets calls from them all the time, trying to figure out what the hell took place on a transaction. How did they get to these values and things like that? So, I think, I think good rules of thumb in the administrative phase, and again, where you can build value in what you do. I don't think you need to be present. Oh, by the way, you should be picking a home inspector that has a lockbox key, right? That means they've signed up with, if a home inspector doesn't have a lockbox key, that's a warning flag, in my opinion. And again, all the stuff I talk about is really based on my experience and my opinion. There could be different rules of thought, and I'm not here to say they're right or wrong. I'm just sharing what I think, right? But if you look at it, I think the way you navigate that third administrative phase is set up your dates and app files and with alerts on them. What is your drop dead date on your insurance? What is your drop dead date on your finance contingency? When was the appraisal ordered? So you could follow up, and then, tickle it. Where do you want to follow up? 3 days before to make sure everything's on track, just put up you don't want to have to go, app files can work for you in a way as a virtual assistant if you take the time when you have an effective contract to put those dates in. So your important dates, and then when you want to follow them up. And if anybody wants help with ideas there, I'll gladly do that with you, of course. And then what I think is another really good practice in that administrative phase, I don't think it's necessary to be there for an entire home inspection. I do think it wise to make an appearance at the beginning so that you establish yourself as the lead dog in the sort of the role, and then to be there at the end for the review, right? Because if a home inspector's, so either side of the coin, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side, if I want to hear right from the horse's mouth what they're saying about whatever potential problem might be, because I might want to interject to diffuse a situation right then and there. I may not want to wait till my buyer gets the report and is left to their own devices, so to speak, so that's it. And then on the appraisal side, look, I'm a firm believer in showing up if you can when the appraiser's there, shaking their hand, introducing yourself, kind of, if you're selling them on the house just as much, in a very subtle fashion. You're not really impacting value when you do that. So, and I think if you tell that story to a potential client, they're going to see value in you. right? Because you've got competition for buyers and sellers. So you got to kind of take the time to differentiate yourself. And I think that's important. Because honestly, all the buyer and seller is thinking about is marketing and selection. That's all they're thinking about. So, then you move into the next phase, contract and negotiation. Where do I differentiate myself there? Well, I'm looking to see that the contract's filled out correctly, right? I'm looking at all the terms and conditions and your timelines. So is it filled out properly? Why is that important? Well, if the other side has presented you with a contract and it's not filled out properly, that's a warning sign to me, right? Doesn't mean I'm not going to do business, but I'm going to alert me and my seller that, hey, this is what I'm paying attention to. I'm going to look at what the terms and conditions of their offer, price and finance terms. I'm going to look at closing date. I'm going to look at time for inspections. And I'm going to look at any other additional terms or conditions and or requests. And, in my very humble opinion, and it probably more so now than it, but this will evolve, right? I've always thought price takes care of itself in the grand scheme of things. It's nowhere near the most important thing on that contract. Here's why I say this. Because price is evident. You see the number, that's what they're offering, right? The devil's in the details, right? That old adage, the devil's in the details. And in those details is telling you, how serious is your buyer or seller? Excuse me. Lost my train of thought there.
You're on fire too.
Yeah, I mean, so you're looking at the price, that's evident, okay? But when you look at, do they want 30 to 45 day closing? If it's longer than 30 days, why? Now on a jumbo loan, maybe 45. If it's a jumbo file, 45. But if you're beyond a 30-day closing, not saying it's a bad offer, I'm saying I'm investigating why, right? Are they hiding a potential home closing contingency? Are they hiding a potential home sale contingency? And listen, these are questions you have a right to ask in a professional manner, right? I don't take it just on the surface. I want to dig deep for my client. Home inspections. Listen, I think 5 days is ideal. I think 7 days is reasonable. I think 10 days is too long. Used to be 2 weeks, but now look, again, we're talking about where our current market is, and that could evolve over time, right? But again, so think about this and always extrapolate. If I've assembled a team of people that I trust and are working on my behalf, and I know if I pick up the phone to Danny Logue, he's going to squeeze me in. I know if I pick up the phone to Sydney, she's going to make the call immediately. So then you hold everybody else to that standard when it comes to rating what's going on in the transaction, right? And again, I'm not suggesting that you rule it out when it doesn't fit into that sort of that box that we want, but it does rate to the quality of the offer and where you might want to counter offer if you're going to counter offer. Okay. Now, again, so in contract and negotiation, I think it warrants mentioning that if I look at the contract in total, and let's just say I'm really good on price, I love it, and everything else is reasonable, I'm not really a proponent to counter offering stuff just to make me feel warm and fuzzy, right? However, if I'm going to counter offer, I want to clean it up to my liking, right? Because the reality is, and I think it's very important to remember, I think it's very important to explain, If you or your client choose to counter offer an offer, the original offer is for all intents and purposes null and void. That buyer is no longer, if an offer is counter offered, the party is no longer, what's the word I want, responsible or mandated to honor their original offer. It's basically when you counter offer an offer, you have taken that initial offer and tore it into little pieces. And I think it's really important that you explain that to your client, because sometimes, and I hear it, I've had conversations with many agents over the years and recently where I think clients and realtors all get hung up on winning the negotiation. The win is the closing, guys. I mean, right? I get it. We get caught up in the moment. This goes back to and reflect on me saying that we want to keep emotion at a minimal, right? So again, be very strategic when you look at a contract, look at price, look at the quality of the offer, look at closing date, look at inspection dates, look at the terms and conditions of your financing and any other particulars that might be in there as far as additional terms. And the other thing that I would say that I am shocked at the leniency of agents who are writing deals, okay, is the time for response. If I'm with a buyer and I'm writing an offer, I got to tell you, why anybody would give more than 24 hours for review and acceptance is flat out beyond me. Right? Now, again, I'm writing my offer to try and achieve the results that I want to get for my client. That can be amended if need be. But on my initial response time, I mean, we're in a technology-driven age. Why do I need more time than 24 hours? Email, text messaging, things like that. Doesn't make any sense. What you're saying is, hey, take my offer and use it against me. That's what you're saying.
To that point, with seeing a lot more listings saying offers aren't going to be reviewed until Sunday. House hits the market Thursday. Do you still, you're the first one in?
Well, so I don't know. I don't know if you heard Jamie's question. Jamie's question was that in today's sort of selling environment, that you're seeing a lot of listings saying, let's say they go in the MLS on Thursday and they're saying offers will not be reviewed until Sunday. Okay, I understand that, right? Because basically you're trying to create a feeding frenzy. So Jamie's question is, well, would you still take my advice and shorten it? My answer is, I think it depends on the quality of your offer. If your buyer's going in at list price and it's a finance deal, so let me answer. Let me retract and answer it like this. I always think it's a good idea, regardless of what side of the coin you're on, as an agent, to remove yourself from where you are and think like you were representing the other side. So if I'm with a buyer, I'm thinking, if I had the seller, what would I be looking for? If I'm a seller, I would try and make them think, well, if I was a buyer on this house, what would I do? Right? It's amazing when I'll tell you, you'll get amazing results if you find a way to do that, because both parties always want to push the envelope, right? And I never want to get into a position where I'm confrontational with a buyer or seller, but I do want to be advisory. And sometimes that's having a conversation that is one that is, it's difficult, but it can be handled. And what I mean by that is, buyer wants to go in $5,000 under, blah, 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 whatever the situation would be. And you go, look, I always diffuse before I advise. Jamie, I'm willing to do that. Okay. But again, I want to reiterate to you what the market conditions are, blah, 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 blah. And if you were selling this house and I was advising you, and that seller does have a realtor advising them. If I was selling, you were selling this house and I was advising you and I got this offer, I wouldn't want to respond to it because we've only been on the market one day. If you want to be successful on an offer like this, we need to look at properties that are on the market for 30 days where the seller might be having a little anxiety. But whatever you want to do, I'm going to do. Right? Same thing, you know, seller wants to go back and say, hey, I don't want any home inspections, you know, and I want the appraisal done in 5 days or less. Look, I understand. But we're going to go out and buy a house here after you get your house under contract. And number one, I could tell you that you could call your lender, whoever you're using. I don't think they can get an appraisal done in 5 days. I think a expedited appraisal is guaranteed in 7 to 10. So you got to keep that in mind. And look, in good conscience, I'd be advising you not to waive your home inspections. Okay. So do you really want to do that? Do you dislike this contract enough? But maybe you could shorten the thing. So, you know, there's always answers there. But if I'm writing an offer, going back to Jamie's question, if I'm writing a cash offer 50 grand over list, yeah, I take my shot. Hey, look, I'm offering you 50 grand over your list price to not wait till Sunday. And I think that happened to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't just assume what you're reading won't be amended for the right number. Everything has a number that it could be, that could give you reason to rethink it, you know? And, you know, you have to wear that hat. That's what I'm saying. Always kind of look at both sides of the equation as you're strategizing what you're doing. So, you know, when you look at this, if you think that, look how much value is in contract and negotiation that goes beyond what's the offer price. And what I used to tell people is, listen, as soon as I get an offer, I'm going to tell you how much it is, but I need you to do me a favor. I need you to listen to everything about the contract before you get excited. Because again, we can always accept, reject, or counteroffer anything. Right? So accept, reject, counteroffer, accept, reject, counteroffer. But I do like to underline to people, if it gets counteroffered, you know, it's basically killing that deal. The other thing that I think is critically important, and I know I've mentioned this, you know, can anybody really, I'm in this business 21 years and I know how I answer this. Can anybody really tell you that they know what a property is worth?
No.
No, there's no way, right? You can't. So when a buyer asks me what I think, now we can look at a respectable price range, low to high, I think, an opinion. Everything's an opinion. From day one, if a buyer asks me what they should offer for a house, I would ask them, do you really want to buy this house? Is this the one? Now, clearly, if they told you they want to make an offer, they've already answered that question. But I want them to hear their answer. Is this the one you want to buy? Is this the one you see yourself living in? Is this the one you want to own? Ultimately, they're going to say yes. What number is a good number to start at if, just hypothetically, a property's listed at 300 and a buyer really wants to buy the property, it's the one they see themselves living in for the next 10 years, your price range is 280 to 320 or 280 to 305, right? What's a good number to start at if they really want to own the house?
305 or up.
Well, I wouldn't start lower than the asking price. But too often than not, I think realtors bait their buyers into a negotiation. Right? If you really want to own the house, offer them full price, cash deal, little to no inspection time, and move forward. or higher. There isn't a rule that says, hey, now look, again, think about this from a global standpoint, not just this snapshot in time, because this market will evolve. Jamie's answer was 305. In this market, that's probably the starting point, is a little bit over ask. But in a normal market, if it's in the right price range and you want to buy it, and it's been on the market, you know, less than 30 days, offer them, give them their asking price. I can ensure you should probably get the property then. Beyond that, I don't know. The seller had, by putting it on the market at a number, the seller and their representative have told you what they're willing to sell the property for. It seems logical to me. I don't understand why so many realtors don't fathom that. And they think that the marketing price that's been selected is some hypothetical number that you come in under if a buyer really wants to buy it. And we can get into great detail about condition and this and that and the other thing. But again, the government, through their rules on appraisals, have really limited the difference between a property that's perfect and a property that's a tear down. So, you know, again, I think if it's in range, your buyer really wants to buy it, make the offer. I mean, and again, let's think of it from another standpoint. And I think this is another one to share with your people. $10,000 worth of discount equates to $50 to $60 a month, depending on the customer. Are you willing to lose a property over 50? Like, now cash is cash, but most of these people are financing, right? In normal time. Even if you said $10,000 on somebody who's paying cash, the argument is simple. Look at your appreciation rate year over year, right? And are you willing to, if you're paying cash, right now we're in a 5 to 10% appreciation rate per year. That means a $300,000 house today is going to be worth a minimum $315,000 a year from now. So you're arguing over 10 grand that arguably you're going to make up in the first 8 or 9 months. If you're not having that conversation, I don't think you're meeting your obligation as an agent. Same thing on the finance side, right? $10,000 discounts, $40, $50 a month, $55, $50 to $60 a month, excuse me. Doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, why? Why are we having this ridiculous? I'll tell you why we're having it. Because a realtor is trying to pin their value on the wrong thing in a transaction. You know, I want to get you in the home you want to be in for the next 5 or 10 years. I want you to buy the right house for you, right? Doesn't really matter what you pay for it if you're happy. Doesn't matter.
There's so many people. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. I guess the things that I feel like I come up against is people are like, I don't want to overpay for the house, you know. That's one of the things they say. Another thing people say, which in this market, I think it's ridiculous that they even ask, but they're like, what are the comps? And I'm like, that's kind of irrelevant right now. I mean, really, but people still ask that question. And I'm like, the comps don't really matter. You know, it's like, what are you willing to pay to get the house? Because people are going over ask by, you know, however much. So, and I think for me, it seems like people who are like investors, people who have a lot of property, they're the people who are like asking about the comps and, you know, wanting to make sure they kind of get a good deal. And especially people from, well, it seems like a lot of people from the Northeast, a lot of them are in that boat, you know, where they want to get a deal, you know. And I've used your language of there's no more deals in Florida. I've told people that straight up, you know. So.
And how's that go when you do that?
They're just kind of like, okay. Like,
I think an answer I would have to that is the deal now is not beforehand. The deal is that you're getting 10% appreciation after you buy. there's your deal.
Yeah, I think there's a couple parts to that are great points, right? So the first thing that I would sort of underline is I believe that the conversation about market has to take place up front.
Mhm.
If you as an agent are having that conversation when they've selected a home and are ready to buy a contract, it's too late. You're probably going to have to go through the process once or twice for them to believe you. Okay. And even if you do it up front, you still may have to. But I think when you do it up front, there's a little bit more credibility in it because it gives them time to kind of like digest, investigate if they want to, et cetera, et cetera. To your other point, I think, and I've said this to a lot of people individually, and you being one of them, Jamie being another one. Actually, you can't be afraid. You can't tread cautiously with your data presentation when you know you're right. Right. So I'm clearly not afraid to look somebody in the eye and say, look, there's no deal. If you're assimilating deal to what you're paying for the property in relation to market value, we may as well just stop right here because that's not going to happen. You know, if you are looking for a deal, hey, you won the deal by paying X amount of dollars and winning the deal. Yeah, that's there. Right. So, and to your point, investors look, I mean, I work with, I have one customer that's been my customer for 20 years. We have a mutual business relationship. I use his services. He used my services. And literally at the end of last year, he was buying properties for, you know, up in Newport Richie for 150, like be marketed for 150, might be buying them for 140, you know? And now I'm like, then there was this transition in the marketplace and I'm like, Eric, I said, there's no more deals, buddy. The deal is this. If you want to buy that house because of the program that you're using, and it's a good program that for you, it's a good program for your customers because he does lease option stuff. I said, you got to win the property. That's the deal. And then you underline that with appreciation. Right? And comps, I'm with you. I mean, look, I think you have to tell a story. And for me, like I could tell you that I rarely presented comps to a buyer. You know, I mean, I would look and I tell them it's in the right price range, but even there, I'd be like, look, the comps only tell part of the story. You know, these are statistic analysis. Bottom line is this, you know, one day on the market, great condition. You're pulling up the properties with 4 and 5 people outside waiting to get their turn to see it. That's the story that you got to underline. And again, look, it's not always going to work, right? And eventually you're going to have to make a decision. You may have to go through the process a couple times with somebody and they may have to lose to be able to hear it, or you make a decision you're not going to work with them. You know, it's not a bad time to underline the fact that time is your asset. You know, time is your time is your asset. Your time is your inventory because there's a finite amount of it. So how you spend it, who you spend it with, that is strictly your decision as a real estate professional. That's one of the things I love about our business. You know, and look, I think I'm pretty reasonable with the way I view this, right? I don't look at me as being more important than any other human being I meet. I don't care what demography they're from. I don't care what their income level is. Look, we're all the same, right? I mean, that's just a fact. And I will give everybody a segment of my time. So what I mean by that is this. if I talk to a buyer, I meet a buyer or seller, I'm going to have my investigative conversation. That conversation could be 10 minutes, could be 30 minutes. If I'm working with a buyer, I want them pre-approved with my lender. I don't care if they have a pre-approval letter or not. Right? And I want to know the W's, right? What are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? And when are you looking to do this? And once I get those answers, I am going to determine, what level of my time I'm going to give you, right? And that goes to the selection part, right? I'm going to decide at that point in time. And most likely, unless there's a real red flag, I'd always give somebody like 90 minutes and 3 houses. That was kind of like that was sort of like my appetizer, if you want to say. I'll give you 90 minutes and 3 houses. At the end of that 90 minutes, I'm going to find out if we're a good fit. It's a mutual interview. And I'm not afraid to tell somebody that. You decide if you want to work with me. I'll decide if I want to work with you. Right? It's okay. It's okay if we decide not to. Doesn't mean you're bad. Doesn't mean I'm bad. Might just not be a good fit. Right? And I think you hear that in me when I talk about my recruiting practices, and I always share that with you because I think it's real important. If you're working with a seller, you're working with a buyer. If I'm potentially going to work with an agent, look, it's got to be a good fit, because I think that the kiss of death for an agent in the marketing and selection phase is their lack of commitment to who they are and their business plan. And then you, as the agent, whose single most important asset is your time, try to be a chameleon for every human being that you meet. Just saying it, the thought of it for me is exhausting. I can't be a chameleon. Now, there's a critical part of this. You have to determine what your plan of action is with a seller. You've got to determine what your plan of action is with a buyer, right? And it's not to say that you won't deviate a little bit here and there within reason, but you're not going to change the whole scope of everything you do, right? It's just like us on the brokerage side. Look, I think that where I think it all boils down to, and I use this as an example, right? Where I think this all boils down to is, look, we believe in the RE/MAX brand. I think it makes a difference in 3 to 4 transactions a year, either tangibly or intangibly. I believe that there is a tech and tools package that every realtor needs to be able to be not only competitive in today's marketplace, but to be able to establish a framework for sustainability and growth down the road, right? You're a CEO of your company. So I believe you got a tech and tools package. I believe you need training. I believe you need marketing assistance, right? So I look at the RE/MAX ROI and I go, I tried to duplicate this other. So I really am pretty convinced that I'm right. That I can't deliver, as an owner of a company, I can't deliver better overall bang for your buck than the affiliation with RE/MAX. I'm convinced of that. And then where does the brokerage come into play? So you got this brand identity, then you get the brokerage identity. And look, I'm very honest. I mean, look, I think location and in the ability, if you need to get to an office, that the office presents itself in a manner that you look good. You look like a star, right? That's what we strive for. Ease of entry, makes a bang, impresses your customer. And then from an ownership standpoint, that we provide administrative support as needed, and that, that we're accessible and we can help you maintain a deal, or, probably up to 4 to 6 deals a year. where we're going to have an impact, not make like just have an impact on your ability to make that deal happen. So when you look at it, you know, I'm not sitting here going, hey, where you work is going to, it's that relationship is foundational, right? And I am so committed to that if an agent doesn't see value there, I am not going to panic and start changing everything. I do enough check-ins with you guys on a regular basis to see where I'm always looking to evolve. I'm not looking to change, right? So I use that as an example of the buyer and the marketing and selection phase, because you have to be as committed to your role in those phases as I am to my role in my role, right? And look, that can sound very daunting to you as an agent, but I want to throw you some rope here, and not rope to hang yourself, by the way. I want to throw you rope that it takes time to develop that. Okay? It probably took me a couple of years on the marketing and selection side. You start with some basics, right? Marketing. I use the Remax brand, international company. Nobody sells more real estate. National advertising, local advertising. That's a lot, by the way. That wins most battles, right? Now I've got megaphone, social media blast, ability to boost, commercials, Remax Hustle, right? These are the things I'm going to talk about on my listing presentation. And I'm going to talk about the stats that were number 1 to 3 in market share in every market in the Tampa Bay area. I'm going to talk about the fact that we are, that Remax agents outsell their competition 2 to 1. And yes, of course, there's outliers where there's good agents with other companies. I'm not suggesting that there's not. I'm just telling you this is what sets us apart in mass. And then I'm going to talk about the fact that my agency has 30 of the most productive agents in the county, Tampa Bay area. And all that's facts, guys. That's all facts. There's my listing presentation. And oh, by the way, I break it, the real estate transaction down into 3 separate phases: marketing, contract and negotiation, and administration. And this is how I manage them. These are the people. And I repeat what I just said to you, to all of you, right? And then on the selection side, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this investigative process where I'm finding out what you're looking for. I'm going to have you pre-approved with my lender. I know you have a pre-approved, but we're going to get that verified so there's no surprises. And maybe there's a little bit more value in the pre-approval. I don't know. And maybe I'll talk about finance first. And then we're going to go out and I'm going to, based on this conversation that you and I are having, we're going to look at, I'm going to pick the best 5 to 7 properties I possibly can, right? And we're going to go out and look at them. And I want to make you aware of something as my buyer. Most of my buyers find the property they're going to buy the first day out. Some of them are courageous enough to purchase it the first day. Some of them think they have to look for more, but I'm going to tell you that realistically, unless I've misunderstood what you're telling me, or you are explaining something that I'm not understanding, or it evolves as we look at my particular market, it ain't going to get any better from here. I'm going to pick the best of the best, right? So, you know, I just want to ask you, you know, if we walked into the perfect house today, would you purchase it? Would you feel comfortable purchasing it? And I wait for their answer. And if they say no, I want to know why. Because if it's a legitimate response and I know I can't overcome it, well, my 5 to 7 houses is going to become 2 or 3. Just saying. My time, my asset, my value. If it's something I think I can overcome, then I go full bore. I don't necessarily believe everything the client's saying. I do believe there's some things we need to overcome, you know, with a client. They don't mean to intentionally they don't know, right? So it's our job to educate. So I spell that out. So I have a I have a plan, right? I have a complete plan. And I really suggest that, I suggest you buy into the 3-phase approach to the real estate transaction. I really suggest that for us, you really do get those talking points with the brand under, really, really strongly, and understand where their value, and their value to you, by the way, on the buyer side too. So I really recommend that you have those programs, those pitches in place, and you fine tune it. Now, like I took about 45 minutes to go through them because I was defining. That's a 15 to 20 minute presentation. It's succinct and it's quick. You could do so much damage as a salesperson in 15 to 20 minutes. It's amazing. So I'd go there. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to pull up my 6 steps to 6 figures real quick, and I'll share my screen. Anybody have any thoughts or questions on anything that I just kind of like threw at you?
I guess for me, I'm just thinking about like this listing presentation that I'm potentially going on with this lady that I told you about, who's told me like, oh, well, I have people who've been sending me cards that say they'll list my house for 2%. And, you told me, well, then what are you going to pay the buyer's agent? And so I've been thinking about that conversation, and like, you said there's 1% for marketing, there's 1% for, that's where you came in with all these, the 1% is each of these 3 things, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
That is absolutely correct.
And that's where I say, which one of these don't you want me to do?
Yeah, where do you want, like I could discount any of these. I don't have to do any of these. Tell me what you don't want. I can give you the brand, if you don't want me to set your appointments for you, then that's okay. You know what I mean? If if you don't want me to be at the home inspection, if you don't want me to be at the appraisal, I don't have to do that. I'll be glad. Look, my time is my asset. If I don't have to be here, I don't have to charge you. And oh, by the way, don't forget, Mrs. Seller, I'm working on a contingency basis. You're not paying me anything unless I get you to closing at a price that you're satisfied with. It's much easier to negotiate my fee and have the buyer pay it in the negotiation through the price you agree to, versus you're trying to negotiate with me now on a hypothetical when clearly you're looking at a card based on a number where they're telling you, pick up the phone. I can't establish value in me, so all I can sell you on is price. And this stuff's complicated, right? You're not paying me anything today. We'll take 1% less in your negotiation, and you've just paid for me. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, does that help?
Yep.
Okay. I'm looking for my. Where is it? Well, if I've lost this, I'll be really aggravated, but I shouldn't have. All right, I know I'm going to look. I know we've been on this for a while, so I'm going to run through. So I know that step number 1, okay, in 6 steps to 6 figures, is that this is a contact sport. Real estate is a contact sport. So what I mean by that is, I think that as you're setting up your baseline of what you're going to do, right? Your primary objective your primary objective has got to be to meet as many people. It's not in here, so I apologize. You got to meet as many people as you possibly can. Can you guys excuse me for 1 second? I just want to run to the restroom. I'll be right back.
Jamie, are you there?
Sorry about that. Jamie stepped away, but I heard that just as a side, I actually pulled up my other laptop because I think I have it on here, and I'll just look at my notes. That worked out. Jamie went out with those people, right? And you had yeah. I mean, look, I'm so happy that you were able to, and I use words that sometimes I'm always fearful that they're taken the wrong way, but I'm glad you had the courage to give that to yourself. You know, because like when I was talking to you that night, I heard that like that angst, like, can I do this? Right? Can I, like, almost like not giving yourself the permission to have that time to yourself and to your family, you know, and I'm just glad that it worked out, because I think that over time, then you're going to have confidence to do that more often and find a way to navigate it, you know,
Yeah, I felt so bad for him too, because after I talked with the woman and got more information from her, she was like, yeah, I'm bringing 3 of my girlfriends, and oh, can he give us rides everywhere? I was like, oh God.
Well, good news, he has the car to do it, so that's the good news, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh geez.
But I'm glad it worked, right? I mean, that's great stuff.
Me too.
Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna cheat and use my PowerPoint over here, and that way I know I won't miss anything. And again, some of this stuff is I covered it already, but I'm going to reiterate it, right? And giving you guys the Reader's Digest version. So step 1 for me, and I was going into its contact support, that's not step 1, is having a business plan, right? And I've talked to everybody about that. I'm more than willing to sit down with you guys and do it if you want to do it. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. I am a firm believer that if you haven't had a business plan, you start simple and allow it to evolve into a more detailed plan. But you know, when you look at it, you know, simple plan. Here's some basic questions that I ask in a simple plan. How much money do I need to make? How much money do I want to make? Those two numbers are different, you know. Then you clearly just you estimate your average sale price. You know, if you don't have a track record, I can help you with that. But you look at where you've been. And then you kind of look at your average brokerage fee that you owned, or I can add it. I use 2.5% for the purposes of a general number. I think that at the end of the day, if you're doing a good job, you're probably going to end up somewhere around 2.5% at the end of the year, as far as your gross commission earned on every deal. How many hours do you want to work in a week? Don't leave it open-ended. And then we back in and just do math. You know, based on these figures, how many people do I need to see? Not, you know, I'm gonna extrapolate a little bit more, but how many people do I need to see? And am I working with buyers? Am I working with sellers? Or am I working with both? Everybody has a different kind of plan of action on that. So that's basically just a simple business plan. You know, a more complex business plan includes everything in a simple plan, plus budgets, plus a 1, 3, and 5 year growth goal and projections. And then, you know, certainly like a personal wealth needed, business budget needed. So, but I mean, I like complex plans. It's who I am as a person. But I mean, you definitely need that simple plan. It makes your life easier if you have it. You know, just answering those couple questions. How much do I need to make? How much do I want to make? What's my average sale price with my history? How many hours do I want to work? And based on that, how many people do I got to have appointments with? Right? That's simple. And then how many people do I have to have an appointment with? And you sort of change that up to say, okay, if I need that many people to have an appointment with, how many people do I need to talk to generate that number of appointments? Because I think that, you know, when I would be remiss if you're looking at any business plan and it doesn't equate to the goal that you should have every day is to set something up in your business that you know you can achieve, right? So I think about it. Most agents wake up and their business plan is, I want to sell 4 houses this month. That's great, but it's such the wrong focus, right? Because you can't sell 4 houses probably unless you talk to 40 people. That's just a reality, right? Because if you talk to 40 people, probably 10 of them are going to be actively engaged with urgency to buy or sell something. And if you do a good job, you're going to close 25 or 30%, maybe 35% of them. So the goal isn't selling a house. That's the reward. The goal is talking to a human being about buying or selling a house. That should be your goal every day. If I talk to one person a day, a real conversation, not a message left, not anything. If I talk to one person a day on average, I'm looking at my calculator, sorry. That's 365 people per year. Right? If I say they're all less than average, I'm going to engage 10% of them. It's 37 people. I'm going to close 10% of the people I talk to. That's 37 deals. If I go about it using the communications that I just went over, that's why I started with that. So, I mean, it's really, this business is this simple. And here's the other thing. I want to, as a CEO of your company, you got to hold yourself accountable. What's it more easy to hold yourself accountable to? Closing a deal or talking to a person about a deal? These windows get narrow. When you listen to professional athletes, when you talk to, listen to elite level coaching, they don't talk about wins and losses. They talk about the process. They talk about the work that it took to get to the game. The game is the easy part. And the wins and losses are going to be what they're going to be. I really, really stress that. So simple business plan or complex business plan. Step 2, 6 steps to 6 figures. And I can email you this so you could all look at it in detail, right? Step 2, 6 steps to 6 figures is the understanding that real estate career is a sales position and a contact sport, right? So we talked about this a little bit. If I'm a professional salesperson, and I get to some people when I say this, but I know we're in the Florida market, but dress for success, right? Dress professionally. Business casual's fine. I really think putting the brand somewhere on you is really important. A name tag, a lapel pin, whatever it might be. But look, it just adds credibility. You know, when you go, again, analogies, right? If you walk into most doctors' offices and or hospitals or clinics, what sets the doctors apart?
They have a white coat on.
Bingo. Bingo. Right? Create your image the same. You don't want to, like, to your point, your friend, your customer comes in, she's got 30 girlfriends, right? You always dress nice. I've seen you always dress nice. I think most of our agents do, right? But what would set you apart, and I hate them, by the way, just to be clear, right? But if you don't have that name tag on with that balloon, you're blending in. You're one of them. We don't want to be one of them. You want to be the pro, right? So it's subtle. It's almost subconscious, but you want to be able to do that. And oh, by the way, when they see that balloon, it means something. I got to tell you, it means something. Figure out where your contacts are coming from, friends and family, circle of influence, referrals, advertising, open houses. I'll be right back. I'm going to get my plug. This laptop's so old, it doesn't hold its charge anymore. It's funny. Okay. So going back to that, so you make those lists, that list of where those people are coming from. And I really do sort of advise to write that list down, because on if any given day, if you wake up every day and you say, today is going to be successful if I talk to somebody about real estate, right? If you have that list written down, you've got a target audience that you could say, hey, look, I want to go. I'm going to call my circle. I'm going to call my previous customers. I'm going to call my whatever, but and maybe you pick one each day that's different that you attack, but again, it's having a strategy. And I'll tell you what, I always believe for us that salespeople in general, right? But realtors really, The problem that we have is that in our businesses, a lot of times we feel like we're on an island. And, you know, you have a bad situation, you have a bad phone call, you have a bad transaction, something goes south, somebody treats you wrong. It's really easy for us to get out of what we're trying to do on any given day, get down on ourselves and want to kind of procrastinate. That's my experience. But if you have these little reminders somewhere for you to refer to, the more you don't have to think about daily and the more you're just being actionable daily, I think really, really helps, right? To that end, like I'm a big believer in, and I'm digressing here a little bit, I'm a big believer in the fact that schedule your day for your next day the day before. Create your list, your agenda of items that you're going to attack tomorrow. Let that be the last thing you do before you shut it down for that day. That way, when you wake up, you've got a list to do and you just cross it off your list, right? Just a suggestion. But make that list of people where you could derive business from. And, you know, you might have a list that's for buyers. You might have a list that's for sellers, whatever it might be. But make those lists, those generic lists, and then fill those lists. Right? Just make it part of your routine. Come on now. Now I'm stuck. Here we go. So then, you know, step 3 is just creating those tools necessary, right? And a lot of this we touched on. Your personal value. That's why I went over that and I kind of hammered that road to the sale, that roadmap of the transaction, so to speak. Because you got to have your personal value. Until you establish your personal value, I find that agents really look to price, and the word that I would say is that they walk. Until you establish personal value, you don't walk confidently, right? Look, even the most confident among us, we still make mistakes. We still evolve, right? The difference becomes if I make a mistake, I'm not paralyzed by it. I learn from it. Because I really do know that everything, my foundation is so solid in everything that I believe in and what we're doing that, you know, and look, again, I want to be clear, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't, when I make a mistake or something bad happens, it doesn't mean it doesn't rattle me. It does, right? So it's okay to be rattled. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. It's all those things. But once you establish your personal value, that's your go-to to get back on track. So it's not just transactional, that personal value, right? It's the confidence with which we go about. So, you know, I think that's the number one tool. Creating a personal value, and then everything falls under that, right? I do believe you need a CRM. You know, I think Booj's stand is fine. You've got Boomtown, that's fine. You know, I look, I like Booj because it has some basic drip campaigns. I think they're important. I really do. So one thing Boomtown doesn't have, they don't have good drip campaigns. You don't have any campaigns really.
There's drip campaigns.
Say again?
There's drip campaigns on Boomtown.
Really? Are they any? I didn't see them in there. Where are they at?
Like when you're under a lead, they're on the right side, like kind of midway down the page. They have drip campaigns for all the different dispositions.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
And you want some of that branded, some of that not branded. I think some of it, you know, should be informational. Some of it should be salesy. So it's a combination of stuff, but you need a CRM. And look, I think I've said it. There's actually a need for multiple CRMs because they all do different things, you know. You need a website, right? So you get that with Remax. I think customizing that website is really strong. Again, you're probably not going to drive traffic to it, but I want that branded website as my online business card. You know, and again, the really strong thing about the Remax website is that it gets indexed on Google because it's all powered under the remax.com search engine optimization. So when you use that, when you use the Remax included website, even in it, and you got to get your profiles done right too. But if you use that website, if somebody Googles, all right, I'm constantly wanting to say your last name wrong, so I apologize. Kristen Koenig, I can't help it. I apologize. What is it?
Koenig.
Koenig. I'm going to get it right. Kristen Koenig, realtor. You're going to come up first, right? Even if they don't know. Or Kristen Remax. You got a good chance to come up first because it's indexed with that search engine optimization. And I really think the only two things that are really critical on there is an ability to your profile, the ability to search, and then maybe testimonials and or like the Remax Hustle videos. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. Now, you could copy our 3D tour of this office. That's pretty impressive. I always like that. That's on our site. Makes you look pretty powerful when you're with a customer. So again, these images. So your website. And I think industry knowledge. Can you tell a story? Do you know the contract? Do you know your geography? Do you know the histories of the areas you're selling in? And then, the ever evolving market knowledge and awareness, right? These are things that I think all kind of underline your personal value. So step 1, business plan. Step 2, understanding that it is a sales position and a contact sport. Step 3, creating that toolbox that's necessary, having that necessary toolbox. Step 4, we've already covered, right? Contract to close us, understanding that journey. We went over that. I went over that first, today for a reason. I knew it was in here, but it underlined it because again, this stuff all ties together. That's where you set yourself apart when you're talking to people. I won't reiterate all that stuff, but that contract to close, step 4, just making sure I didn't forget, always telling your story, educate the buyer on the market conditions, the road to the sale, learn your customer, begin a relationship, convince them that you're different and why. All this building value, it all comes back to building value. Creating yours and executing your road to the sale. I didn't talk about this previously, but I will now. Initially, you do the search and select the properties in that marketing phase. Don't set them up. I don't recommend just setting. Now, out of town people, you got to do differently. I get it. But I'll give you an alternative too. I just don't believe in the automatic drip campaign mentality, right? Because then there's no value. I'm more inclined, and I've recommended this. I don't know if I've recommended it to you guys or not, but I recommend that you set up the drip campaign to you, and then you share the properties, right? They're coming from you, that kind of thing. Or at least at the very least, copy you so that you see what they're seeing. If they're out of towners, right? Hey, you send them the first 5 to 7 that you think meet their criteria and kind of do a virtual confirmation that you've heard them correctly. And then set them up on the drip campaign. Have that, you have your meet and greet. You have that first showing. If it has to be virtual on the out of towner, it could accomplish the same goal, right? And then I'm a firm believer in, you meet at the neutral site and maybe you drive them around. More people are following today, especially because of COVID. But I like to start at a familiar position, even if they're following you, to reiterate everything kind of thing. Very importantly, don't forget to ask for the sale. Don't wait for the customer to raise their hand and say, hey, can I buy that one? If you think it's the right house, tell them, hey, this is everything you described. Why aren't we? Do you want to make an offer on it? Don't be afraid to ask for that. And in the event that they don't do that, I'm a firm believer that you aggressively follow up and set follow-up appointments. You set the timeline for what's taking place. Don't leave it open-ended. You don't accomplish your goal today on Wednesday. Hey, do you have time to get together based on your schedule and availability? Do you have time to get together on Friday or Saturday? Right? And I say this, never end an appointment without a scheduled follow-up. Never end a phone call without a scheduled follow-up. Never leave it open-ended. Right? So there you're creating your agenda for the future. It's not left to chance. I think that's one of the most overlooked things that salespeople do. Right? And I like an overview of the contract. We've done contract classes. I like we do a detailed one with you as the agent, but I like the idea of a quick overview with just the headlines. Hey, this section says this, just read the bold part. Just adds a little value.
What point do you do that? At what point in the?
At the offer.
Okay.
At the offer.
Because I give people a sample contract when I first meet with them, and I have like sample put across it so they can't go.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's good. So that then you're expediting it. I think that's a really good idea. And you could say, hey, do you have any questions on it? And then that could alleviate that step. Right. So I think that's a really good alternative. I might actually add that. That's a good idea. Give them a sample buyer package day one. Establish what's going to what's going to happen. That's a great idea, actually.
Thanks.
Yeah. But I really do love that idea of scheduling your follow-up, whether it be an initial phone call, an appointment, whatever it might be. Schedule your follow-up. Explain all the contingencies. It's everything we talked about in establishing the sale, right? Step 5, I believe, is the strategic partnerships, building your team. Again, we talked about it, so I don't have to belabor it, but you should look at it like how we look at it. This is how I present this to our agents and others, right? But, is the office, and you can look at this when you're analyzing deals, right? Are you dealing with a franchisee or an independent? What tools do you have? What leads are provided if you want it, and you building. Don't forget, our goal with all of this is that you build a repeatable, sustainable business that you can have reasonable expectations of on a monthly basis. That's what it's all about, and then that extrapolates out to an annual basis. But here's what I think is important, right? If you've got a mortgage partner and listen, these are the standards we hold Go Mortgage to. So again, I'm always pitching our services. I'm not upset if you don't use them, but you should. I think it's important that you have a baseline to hold others accountable to. So are they available to you always? Can you reach them when you need to reach them? Urgency is crazy right now. Do they make you look like the hero in the transaction? The referring agent has to look like a hero. Do they help you with follow-up throughout the deal, whether it be a pre-qual that's out shopping? Are they helping bring them back to you to keep them active during the deal? Are they keeping them informed so you look good after the deal? Do they close on time? Do they offer any engagement, client engagement from prospect to close or post-closing? That's what a good mortgage strategic partner does. Title provider. Are they engaging the client? It's all pretty much the same thing. Do they keep your client informed? Do they alert you of potential problems in the deal? Do they provide you with a draft closing statement? Do they assist in getting your condo and HOA docs, right? So between your mortgage and title partners, that a lot of the administrative work can be done on your behalf. And again, we strive to be perfect. We do. And I think you have to strive to be perfect, but you're never going to attain it. Right. So I think that, our relationship with Go and Alliance. I think they're good, and I think they do a really good job on these items, and that's why I'm comfortable with them. And I think you should either use them or find people that hold themselves to those standards. The others, home inspector, homeowners insurance, these are people that you want go-tos of. That understand what you expect, not what they're going to do, but what you expect of them. Do they do a good job, home inspectors? Do they do a good job? Does the home inspector understand the contract that your buyer signed? If they don't, you got the wrong guy. Does your home inspector present from a standpoint of a positive spin or a negative spin? Are they trying to keep an informed deal together, or are they trying to kill a deal? Is your homeowner's insurance giving a competitive quote and explaining that they can always upgrade their policy? These are the go-tos that you want. So, if you like somebody like you, Kristen, you should go back and evaluate all this. I evaluate it all the time, right? I mean, look, I hope at the end of the day that the agents that work with us here in this office, that they like us, right? But more importantly, I want there to be a respect factor and an understanding that, look, whether you like me or not, my goal is to try and help you achieve your business goals and objectives, right? And I think sometimes when you're building this strategic team, agents focus on the like factor and not the business factor, right? And you just got to really out, because the better that strategic partnership, building that team around you, your personal value goes up for you and your clients, and your transactions become easier. So always keep evolving. And listen, that doesn't mean, let me be very clear, it doesn't mean you have to change a strategic partner if they're not answering the bell. It may just mean you have to have a communication with them to say, hey, look, I need you to answer the bell. Right? Because complacency is easy. It is. So doesn't make people bad, it just happens. So just to reiterate again, step 1, business plan. Step 2 is it's a sales profession and a contact sport. Step 3, creating that toolbox. Step 4, understanding that contract to close, prospect to client, 3 phases of the real estate transaction, understanding that journey. Step 5, creating that strategic partner team around you. Step 6, and this, look, I can't tell you how many people always are in search of the silver bullet. What's the silver bullet in the real estate business? And if I would say this is what I'm about to talk about is the silver bullet, but there's 1 and 1A. So I think the silver bullet is that you go about your day understanding that real estate is an inconvenient business, and you have got to create the urgency. If you master that thought, and you master the fact that it's a contact sport, everything else will fall into place, even if it's imperfect. Right? So that's the silver bullet to me. You set the schedule, right? And the schedule changes depending on your personal goal, your personal goals. It changes on your family and personal time goals. It changes based on time in the industry, and it just changes based on your desire to meet or exceed your goals. But you're setting the schedule. You are not relying on anybody else to impact what you want to accomplish. You got to realize that you are the CEO of your company, that although you are not working for somebody, you're working for yourself, that it is a job and you got to hold yourself accountable. You know, track your daily activities. You'll be shocked. That's why I think that agenda before for the next day is so critical. And don't get fooled by this. Ask yourself this question daily. Are you busy or are you productive? There's many days I'm busy that I'm not productive. Right? And are you intertwining? Are you mixing business and personal time and endeavors? Schedule your time, you know? Look, I think I'm not a big, some people are very much of the opinion that you got a time block. I'm more of the opinion you just got to schedule your time, right? Look at your agenda, figure what it is. Look in advance. If you've got a dentist appointment, if you got a doctor's appointment, if you got to pick somebody up at the airport, well, schedule accordingly. You know, look 30 days out on your calendar and schedule accordingly. Is things going to happen that come up that affect this? Sure. And don't beat yourself up over it. Right? But you got to realize that depending on if you're new in the business and if you're depending on what your personal goals are, regardless of how long in your business, you're in this business, during work time, it's not your time. It's not your flex time. You know, and always ask yourself as a CEO of your company, if you were working for someone, and look, both of you, Kristen and Kirsten, both come from environments where you work for people. Could I do that? Ask it, like, if it's not scheduled within your time slot, ask yourself as your own personal employer, would my employer let me do this right now? It is worthy of a giggle, isn't it? I mean, because I think, and we're all guilty of it, right? If we're painfully honest with ourselves, we bullshit ourselves more than anybody else, right? But if we're painfully truthful with ourselves, we realize that we throw things in there that get us off base and almost create a procrastination instinct. We want to avoid that. This is I think this is great business. If you have an agenda outside of appointments, you get up 8:30, 9 o'clock, get busy on your day, you can be done by noon most days, other than appointments. If you just hammered it, you know, your agenda items. I believe you create the pace of the transaction. Don't let other people dictate it. You be demanding, you know, have a timeline that you're committed to, that you sell to your client base. When you write a contract, share what your timelines are for that. You know, tell the people when stuff's due. Hey, I need this inspection done. You know, establish it. Don't expect that here's what I would say. Go in with it with the thinking and that the other person's not going to do the job correctly. And what can you do to keep the file on track? What steps do you have to do to put in to keep your file, your transaction on pace? I am not going to allow my income to be dependent on somebody else's actions without me having my hand in there. Most important thing is that deal closes on time. That makes my customer happy and it gets me paid on time. And I think those two are not mutually exclusive. I think they're equally important. Customer deserves the customer deserves to close on time. That's what they agreed to per contract. You deserve to get compensated on time. If you've done all this stuff we've talked about, you deserve to get paid. Don't ever apologize to anybody for that. You deserve this job's hard. If you do it well, you earn every penny. When you're talking to prospects and clients, determine where they're at. A, B, C, you know, now, nurture, never, You know, you determine that and you move them along. And that's how you should really function within the scope of your day. And I talked about this. I did touch base on this. Never, 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 never leave an appointment without an offer, a follow-up appointment, or an understanding of what's about to happen next. Never end a phone call. Never end an appointment. Never. All, even in an email. If you send somebody an email, tell them what's next. Create the expectation. If you create the expectation, you create the result. That's just a fact.
One of the things like that I do a lot is I call boomtown leads. And so I guess just in what you're saying, probably and some of them I do it like when it's like a ways out, when they're like, oh yeah, I'm not sure. I'll be like, okay, is it all right if I call you back in like a month? When people are like really far out, they're like, yeah, I might buy in a year or two, you know, whatever. But I guess I should probably be saying something to the ones that are maybe a little closer in, like when I hang up, like, hey, is it okay if I give you a call back in a week or two? Something like that.
Well, yes, I would change the delivery just a little bit. So you're asking for permission,
Yeah.
right? I think I would do it from a standpoint is I would tell them what I'm going to do and see if they tell me no. Right? So just a little bit of change, right? So that long termer, right? Hey, that's great. I work with a lot of people like you. See, always make them feel, you know, hey, I work with a lot of people like you that are, you know, that are a year or two away, have an extended time for doing this. And I appreciate that. National Association of Realtors tells me that the average buyer and seller of a home start the process at least 12 months in advance. So basically, you're telling me you're at the beginning of that process. What I do for those people is I send you a monthly newsletter and I call you quarterly just make sure nothing's changed. And all I ask you to do is if in the interim, if something changes that accelerates that, let me know and I'll change what I'm doing for you to meet your needs. Right? That person that's more now, listen, I'm going to follow up with you weekly. Is there a day that's better than another? Is Thursdays better? I usually make these calls on Thursdays at noontime. Are you available Thursdays at noon, or when would you be available if that's not good? Boom, I'm scheduling my follow-up. All of a sudden, my agenda's done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, you've got these notes in front of you. You get that daily agenda that comes up. I guarantee you that when you look at that, you will feel more confident and that's the result you want. Because you know if that agenda is spot on, right, and you're doing this, the deals are going to come. There's not a question mark. There's no question mark. And then you'll start to be able to say, well, I expect 3 deals this month. I expect 6 deals next month. I expect, you know what I mean? Like you'll know where they are. And it doesn't, look, it doesn't always work. But I could tell you, you have to create a process that you execute 100% of the time to get the results that you deserve. That's the only thing you commit to is the process 100%. Everything else is there, right? So you have a preset follow-up routine. This buys into that. You know, this buys into like maybe, you know, for prospects that want morning calls, you make your morning calls on Tuesdays. You make your afternoon calls on Wednesdays. You make your evening calls on Thursdays, you know, because again, you want to schedule your personal time. You know, will you make an exception for that here and there? Sure. And I believe until you got about a really solid base of business that you're answering your phone from like 8:30 to 9, right? The business is inconvenient in the beginning. And that doesn't mean that if you're out to dinner, you should be taking calls. I don't think that at all. But I think, look, if I really got nothing going on, me taking a call at 8:30 at night is not, I don't feel like that's ruining my personal time, you know. That being said, if I'm tired and I'm not in the state of mind that I want to take a call, don't take the call. Give yourself that permission. You know, be honest with yourself. Because guess what? Here's the deal. If you take a call and you're not mentally prepared for it or physically prepared for it, the likelihood of success is small anyway. And I don't want anything to happen by accident. Nothing happens by accident. So, you know, there's not a lot there that is overly complicated. But to me, if you take this advice and you package it into what you want to do, it's basically the cornerstone of everything I've done over the last 21 years. So I'm not arrogant to say, hey, this is the only way to do it. These are the practices that I have implemented, did my best to master, and did my best to evolve to be able to have a repeatable, sustainable business on a monthly basis where, you know, there's still stress, there's still anxiety, there's still grief, there's still anger, but all those emotions are fleeting and the results are pretty consistent. And that's kind of what you want, right? You want to be able to navigate a day, an imperfect business, navigate a day with some level of reasonable expectations, and on a monthly and annual basis, be able to write a number down that you hope to achieve for your business and your personal wealth and hit it without question. You know, if I do these things, I'm going to hit those numbers. And I think what I've just described to you over the last, say, 90 minutes, that's what that's designed to do. Got to make it your own, got to fine tune it. There's nothing there that can't be changed or amended for your own personal psychology and your own personal presentation. But I think it gives you the cornerstone and the foundation of the thinking behind it, right? So that's really all I got. Happy to answer any questions, any thoughts, anything at all, if you guys have anything.
I think is number 6, the real estate is an inconvenient business and I have to create urgency?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Inconvenient and urgent. It's a nightmare. But I think it's really important that you commit to at least attempting to create your timelines, that you're not reliant on the customer telling you when to jump. You know, that's kind of the goal. Because again, it allows you to walk with confidence. It allows you to walk with certainty. That's where you're hoping to achieve. Kirsten, anything?
Yeah, I have a question, but it's not really, sorry, it's not much you've talked about. It's just a question regarding, one of my listings won't show on Zillow. And I've tried to reach out to Zillow a few times and I've gotten no response. It's a vacant lot that it was split from another property last year. So I don't know if because it doesn't have an address or what, but I can't.
Well, if it doesn't have an address or a tax ID number, it's not going to show.
Well, it has a tax ID number.
Do you have an address in there?
I mean, it has like a, yeah. I mean, it has a whole, I have the MLS for it. It has its own parcel number and everything.
So we don't have, like, Zillow pulls from the MLS. Is it active in the MLS?
Yeah, it was a little while ago, Dustin checked on it, but we couldn't figure it out. So I've tried to reach out to Zillow, but I can't get a response.
I would check with the MLS and ask them if they could see any reason why it wouldn't be pulling through to Zillow.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
I mean, I try there and then I'd stick with fighting with Zillow. I mean, again, because that whole arrangement, what populates on Zillow comes through the relationship with the board. So
Okay.
if it's published in the MLS and everything's correct, I can't see why it wouldn't show over there. So then you got to go to the tech side of both the MLS and Zillow to find out what's going on.
All right. Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome.
That brings up another question for me related to Zillow.
Yeah.
So I have my reviews on Zillow, and that's
Mhm.
the only place I have them. And I just have wondered about it, and I just because
You
she
can
brought
pull
up,
them through to your Remax website, you know.
yeah. Well, that's what I've been thinking about that. And then also wondering if I shouldn't put them someplace else because I feel like I don't ever know what Zillow is gonna do.
Well, I guess like I mean, if you're asking my advice would to make sure that Remax website is functional, and I'd pull them over to there. That Remax website should be your personal business card, your online business card, right? And again, I mean, I guess you know, I hate to answer a question with a question, but where else would you put them that makes a difference?
Well, I guess I was thinking of putting them on my Boomtown site, and then I was
You do
also
that too.
and then I've been thinking about and just haven't done it yet, making like the Google My Business thing where you can have reviews there. Cause it seems like people, I don't even think anybody looks on Zillow. I feel like nobody looks there. I don't know, but
No, but they serve a purpose. I mean, if you, I mean, I listen. I put them anywhere you can. I mean, you know, I don't think there's no benefit in hiding them, right? And look, any marketing to me is tiered, you know, so you don't want to put them one place, you want to put them every place. If there's something you want out there in the public domain, you want it everywhere. Because I'm not smart enough to know where everybody's going to go, right? So I want them to go wherever I send them. I guess that's my, you know, off the cuff thinking. I mean, if it evolved, but I put them everywhere.
okay.
If you're putting them one place, put them everywhere. That'd be my thinking.
Okay.
So I hope, do you guys think this was helpful? I mean, information helpful?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think so.
Good. All right. Well, if you guys have another topic you want me to cover, let me know, and we'll put it on the schedule. If not, I'll come up with something and send it back.
Can
But
I
yeah,
ask one more question?
Nope, you're out of questions.
As far as I'm struggling with my bio for my website because being a new agent, I feel like everybody puts their experience as an agent. And obviously I don't have experience, so I'm struggling with how to
Yeah,
go
well, I
about-
think you gotta I think you gotta present yourself as a long-term, you know, member of the community, grew up in the community, market knowledge of the community, resource not only for real estate needs, but, you know, understanding, you know, the different community aspects. I think you have to differentiate yourself like that. And, you know, come from a family of real estate investors, you know,
Okay.
which brings a perspective to it. I think that's how a new agent has to present themselves. And then you accompany that with partnering with a company that's been in the local market for over 21 years or since 2000, and partnering with an international company like Remax to be able to package all these things and offer them to my client base.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, girls. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. I really do. Again, apologize for being a couple minutes late, but I think we covered everything well. If you have any thoughts or follow-up that you come up with over the next couple days, just shoot me a text. I'll be happy to respond to it.
Okay. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.